Hello, Intuitive Art friends. I'm Rachel Archelaus, founder of the Intuitive Art Academy, and I am with Carrie Roldan. She is our certification coach and all things business BFF. So thanks for joining us today. Hey, Carrie.
Hey Rachel, I'm happy to be here as always.
Awesome. So, where is this coming from? We're going to talk today about having incredible relationships. And it was a topic that was actually suggested a few months ago. And I think at this point, with most of the world still sort of at least partially sheltering in place, we've gotten to know the people that we love very deeply. Even if you're not living with someone right now, even if you live alone, you probably have more time to call your loved ones, your friends. And so I feel like this year has been all about intimacy and being the challenge of being ourselves in different circumstances. Maybe you're not used to running your business or just doing what you do if your husband's home. Maybe you're not used to somebody knowing about all of your hobbies, right? Like there are things that have come up this year that are different because our circumstances are different. And I remember a time, it wasn't that long ago, when there were even things that I didn't want to do around my boyfriend or the other people that I was with, right? So instead of segregating ourselves and like only doing things in private, now probably you've experienced at least a little bit of doing things in front of people. So the question becomes, how can you grow? How can you be your baddest self, express self, and still love the people you love? Like, how do you be your full self no matter what? And how do you deal with relationships that might be strained right now? You've probably learned more about your other half or your children than you knew before. So there's a lot to talk about today. We're going to get into it. And yeah, I'm going to pause and see what Carrie has to say.
Well, it's funny. I knew that this topic, um, I thought we were choosing this topic for a whole other reason. So I'm going to tell you that. So I
Mm.
remember when you put the poll, and I remember that people wanted to know about this topic and they wanted to know about their relationship with money. And so we chose the relationship with money because that happened to be more relevant in what was going on in us in the moment. And then Rachel, you and I are both part of another group where we were having our check-in, right? It is often a business check-in in this, and what came up was some relationship stuff. Some, am I growing out of this relationship? Being in quarantine has shifted this relationship, and what happened then was a bunch of us who have known each other for several years and feel like we know each other pretty well started to open up about our relationships in a different way than we ever had before. So I totally thought that that's where this was coming from, like that conversation, not the poll, but that. But either way, it's the same thing. It was all of us recognizing what you just said, that our relationships are changing, for better or worse. And I think for me, and I don't know if this is for everyone, but what I'm hoping to get out of this conversation. So I wrote down some of the things you said intimacy, said the challenge of being ourselves when you're surrounded. And some people are isolated, right? I know several people who live by themselves. And there's still a challenge in that, right? The challenge of being yourself when you're by yourself. But in my case, I now am always with someone. There's at least one other person. Every once in a while, I'll send Rachel like a Marco Polo, which used to happen in our professional relationship all the time, right? Like we used to be back and forth constantly. And since I'm surrounded by these other people all the time, I recognize that I'm doing less of that, right? I'm doing less connecting with my friends outside of my household because I'm surrounded by my children and my husband at all times. Anyways, you the thing that I'm interested about in this conversation is um, evolving intimacy, right? Like the just what you said. Now that I'm spending all this time with my husband, how um, how that relationship can evolve, right? Instead of just falling into kind of stale patterns, right? Like without being able to go on dates or escape our children or like um, how can our relationship evolve? How can what I see happening is even though we're all spending a lot of time together, we're kind of over it. Like it went in the beginning, we were like, yay for family time. This is so great. We get to reconnect. Let's play games. Let's do it. And now we're like, do we have to sit together at dinner? Right? Like that's happening for us. So anyways, I'm excited to have this conversation and it's making me think about, not just how my relationships are evolving with my kids and how, um, and my husband, but even like my parents and, how they're handling quarantine and when we see each other, what that looks like. And as they get older, how that relationship is going to evolve. So I'm excited to just dive in.
Nice. Yeah. Yes to all that you said. Um, so I think we need to start in a place that we're all able to access, which is that every relationship you have is always about you. So whether you love your relationships or you don't, the only way to change them is inside of yourself. So I think that's really important to know because a lot of us are taught when we're little that other people have power over us and that we we have to do things to please other people, right? We're kind of taught that if the people in our lives aren't happy, we have to do something about that. And especially in a marriage, I hear a lot like, I can't do this because I'm married. I can't do that because someone is depending on me. And I'm not talking about children, obviously, that's a different story. But I hear a lot that we are looking outside of ourselves for permission. We're also looking outside of ourselves for validation. We're also looking outside of ourselves for harmony. And we're just looking outside of ourselves way too much because everything we want is in here. The love, the validation, the intimacy, the connection, the clarity, the relaxation, everything we want others to do for us is here. So before your brain starts going off in a million, but, I get it. Mine is too, right? Of course, we want to surround ourselves with people who are a match and who are compatible and who we enjoy being around, and obviously who fills our bucket as well, right? But we're all adults now, and so we get to choose that. So it's all about you, and it's really all attraction. So I want to go here first. This is the greatest relationship hack I've ever learned, and it has totally transformed my life, my mom's life, anyone else I've ever told it to who's actually done this. And here's like, if you don't even listen past this point, like you've totally got gold. If you can only pay attention to what you appreciate about someone else, whether it's your postal worker, your husband, your wife, your girlfriend, your children, your checkout cashier, if you can only pay attention to what you appreciate about them, maybe it's their earrings, maybe it's the way they get the mail, maybe it's the way they always put their shoes on the little square next to the door when they come in, right? They're very neat. Whatever it is, pick one thing, pick 10 things. But if you focus on what you appreciate, what you enjoy about that person, what makes you laugh, the reason you got together, that will wipe out any of the annoying little things that bug you, because focus creates reality, right? Whatever you are paying your attention to, you're given your money to pay attention to that thing. That's what grows. And so ignore any little thing that's come up, any little thing that you don't like, any of their behaviors or patterns or words. Let that go. Don't focus on that. Totally let it out of your system. Even in the moment, if you can, if there's not too much momentum, if they're starting to say something that you don't like, just focus, oh, their hair looks nice today. Just talk over them in your mind about something that you enjoy. And as focused as you can be about that, that's the quickness with which your relationship with them will change. So if you can be really diligent about that, then you will start to only see them present you with what you appreciate. And it's like they're a totally different person, but it's because your attention creates the relationship with which they can come to you. It's attraction. So just like you attracted them into your life in the first place, you can attract the best qualities of them on a full-time basis if you only look at that. And I have to say, it sounds like magic, I know, but it really, really, really works. And it can save marriages, relationships. It can help your kids open up to you and be more relaxed. Like, it can really change things. So I know I used to coach Carrie, and I definitely have said that to her before. So I'm wondering, have you ever tried that, Carrie?
Oh, yes. And what I want to say is the hardest part about that is um, letting go of needing to be right.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I've gotten into the place where I'm just like having a hard time finding something to appreciate, it's because I want to be right about all the things that I don't appreciate, right? Like I want, I want to, like I'm digging my heels in my misery, right? And what's making me uncomfortable because I want to be validated in that I am right and that other person is a stupid idiot, right? Or that other person is behaving in the wrong way. And it is the hardest part for me is like that resignation of do I want to be right or do I want to be happy? And then once I
Yeah.
get there, I can shift my focus pretty quickly, right? Because in every relationship that um, we're in it. Well, family is different, right? But our friendships, um, our work relationships, our intimate relationships, right? We're in those relationships by choice. And yeah, so yes, I've done it. Every time that I find myself slipping out of the pattern, I sometimes the path of least resistance is to spend a little time in being right before I'm ready to move into appreciation. Um, but yeah, I mean, I can't even tell you like the miraculous things that have happened in my life and my relationships with my dad, with my husband, with my children, right? When I'm choosing to remember what I like about them, remember what's amazing about them. And the fun game for me now is finding new things to appreciate, things about them that I didn't know. And that has been actually helpful during this quarantine time, right? Is even turning the things that so there's a thing about my husband that initially I found super annoying, and during quarantine, like it got like way more annoying because he was a constant presence. And so I had to flip that and be like, what do I appreciate about this annoying behavior? And there are good things to appreciate about like the same things that make it annoying also actually make it wonderful and give me something to appreciate. So it's a matter of perspective. I wanted to say something else, but I can't remember. So to answer your question, yes, absolutely, yes. The biggest area in my life where it made a really tangible difference was for the longest time, I thought my husband and I will never ever get on the same page about money. He's this way, I'm that way. He's wrong, I'm right. He is this way because of this, and I understand and I see it, and I'm diabolically opposed to it. Like, I thought we could never get on that same page about that. It was too concerning. And then one day Rachel was like, well, what do you appreciate about it? Well, can you find things to look at that you like? And as I started doing that, we just came together, right? And now it's, if it comes up, if the old pattern comes up again, it's a much faster, easier fix. I wanted to say it's come up twice and then I've lost it, but it's something about, oh, okay, so as relationships evolve. So something that was scary to me in the beginning of my marriage, and I'm wondering if it is scary to people or if it's honestly the reason why there's a high divorce rate, is, and I know, Rachel, I think you've been through this as well, where one person in the relationship feels like they've grown or they've evolved or they're changed, right? That they're not the same person. So we came together, all of us, right? We're in relationships because at the moment we came together, we were vibrationally aligned in one respect or another.
Yeah.
And I had this fear that as I grew, and changed and evolved and became somebody new and different and amazing and wonderful, um, that he wouldn't or didn't, and that we couldn't be in relationship. Um, that wound up being unfounded, but I think we should talk about that.
Yeah. Well, this is super, super common. I've gone through it twice. One time I did get divorced. One time it ultimately made things a lot stronger. And so the thing about attraction is like you're saying, you initially come together because there are like vibrations in each of you. Sometimes it's not the things that you would want to highlight. Like sometimes you come together because you love complaining. Sometimes you come together because you both had a hard childhood. Like it's not necessarily that, you find ultimate true love and you just focus on bliss, right? I think that's a little less common. And so most people aren't that sure why they've come together in the first place. And so there can be, it's just a regular relationship, right? We've all been there. It's good and bad and, great and not so great. But then a lot of people have a growth spurt, spiritually with themselves, self-growth, etc. And they feel like maybe they've let go of that initial thing that brought them together. And so one person's kind of hanging out here, one person's hanging out here, and you're like, what connects us? I'm not really that sure, other than history, right? And that can be super boring. So if you don't really have anything connecting you other than your address, it can feel really lonely and worrisome. And so what I typically see happen here is that the worry, right? The worry is what makes that go farther apart, right? Because we're all source beings. We all have literally like nearly the same vibration at our core, just like we have 99.9% the same DNA, right? It's the same thing. And so if we can get into that place of appreciation, loving our own lives, focusing on what we love about what we've found, if we're on a growth spurt, we're more connected with ourselves. We know how to help ourselves feel better, right? We're probably meditating or doing some journaling. And so if this person who's had a growth spurt can focus on their joy and expansion and growth and happiness and what they love about life and new hobbies, and then look at their partner through that filter, right? That will help them find new connections, right? So if you're feeling good and you look at them while you're feeling good, everything's going to turn out okay. But if you feel good and then you're worried about, well, they like what I do, they don't believe the same things as I do. If you make up stories that don't feel good and you put your focus there, you're going to have a lot harder time coming back together because you're focused on the separation, right? So it's just about how you feel in your body. If when I'm thinking about this, I feel good, you're good. If when I'm thinking about this, I feel bad, you're headed apart. And I think that's the simplest I could make it. And you're nodding. So is that how you have experienced things?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't have verbalized it the same way, but yes, you are exactly describing. It's I love when we have these conversations where you're coming at it like I sometimes come back at it from what I think is practical, and you're coming at it from vibrational, which is the most practical way, right? But my perspective is just that like it is free, it is making stories, right? So even I think our challenge is that sometimes history has told us, or because we've told ourselves the same story for a long time, that it's true.
Mm-hmm.
And so what was helpful for me was to be like, but what if, right? So, what I felt like as I had created a life for myself in the habits that I was doing that I no longer loved, but I felt like I couldn't change my own habits or my own behaviors because then I would be letting down my husband or my children or whomever, right? That I had trained to expect certain things of me. And so for me, the story in my head was, well, they're not gonna, like, it won't work if I don't behave this way inside of the relationship. They're not gonna love me anymore, or they will be angry, or they, whatever it was. And what the thing for me was just, um, even though that story seemed true, even though maybe I had past experience telling me that it was true, when I was able to entertain, well, what if actually this other thing is true, right? What if actually this other person is looking for an opportunity? Like I would just make up another story, one that I liked, and I didn't even have to believe that other story yet. I just had to get myself to the place where there was an alternative to the story that I was creating. There was another avenue that could be true. That was enough to shift myself into a place that truly changed other people's behavior,
Mm-hmm.
like in miraculous ways, where suddenly other people were showing up and doing things that I would have thought that they would never do, saying things that I would have thought they never would have said, simply because I changed the story in my head, which is pretty cool.
Yes, which kind of goes with that it's only attraction and it's all about you, right?
Yes.
Seriously. So the reason I come at things vibrationally, which is funny, I don't know if I ever realized this so acutely before, but it's because we create our reality. So a lot of times we look at what's outside of us or the people and how they've showed up or like what money comes into our account when, we think that that's real. We think that's like set or written somewhere outside of us, but it's actually not. So if we can go to that like pure and simple vibrational law as it is, and we can own that, like I'm creating everything. So it doesn't matter what's going on around me. I can change it. I'm the code writer, right? I'm the rule maker. If I can change me, how I'm feeling about things, what I'm thinking about, the stories playing in my head, then that will change. Like that's not the big deal. This is the big deal. What we're expecting, right? What we're anticipating, what we are thinking about most often, how we're feeling in any given moment, that's what creates that outside world. including the behaviors of other people, just like Carrie just illustrated.
Which sounds weird, right? It sounds like, I mean, can you really, right? Can you really like change the way other people behave? And interestingly, I think absolutely, right? I think people
At least when it
respond,
comes to your interaction with them.
yes,
So that's
yes.
really where I think it gets easier to understand. So everyone has had this experience. It's such a weird experience. There's two people talking. Maybe let's say it's you and your mate, if you have one. If not, pick somebody else. I'm saying one thing. I can hear it come out of my mouth. I know what I've said, and they say that I said something different. Have you ever had that happen? Even if it's just one word, but you heard it, you felt it come out of your mouth, and they say, We are writing their script. They are writing our script. And, one thing that Carrie and I have talked about a lot is like the idea of there being a dominant vibration in a relationship. We were both married kind of young, right? Like in our early 20s. Um, and
I was 27,
okay, you were
so
20s. I got divorced at 27. So I got married when I was 20. And when I got married, I was so just puppy dog love. And I basically fell apart completely. Like I was living to be a wife now. I was living to be a mate, and I just wanted to be the perfect wife. And I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know who to be because it's fake. Like there's no perfect wife. Um, and I kind of like just went off the rails and lost myself completely and turned into like a little puddle of mud. Um, and that's not my husband's fault that I did that. But the thing was, I let his vibration be dominant. And after a while, that was really terrible for both of us. He didn't want a servant, and he married me because I was this wonderful, full, well rounded person. And I disappeared. And then his dominant vibration was he was like a very troubled person. And so I let that come onto me as well. And so we just turned into this horrifying, toxic ball of yuck. And we ended up getting divorced. And again, nobody's fault. It's just what happened. And that happens a lot when you're in a partnership. Sometimes one person has a more dominant personality. Sometimes one person just knows what they want more. They're more decisive. They second guess themselves less. And so it's easy for the other more submissive person naturally to just follow along, keep everything harmonious, right? Go with the flow. And that actually doesn't serve either of you. It's not what they chose in you, right? It's hopefully, it's not what makes you feel good ultimately. Because again, in that case, if you're the submissive one, you're looking outside of yourself for everything: validation, love, approval, and you're basically living to make someone else's life easier. And I think
I have something to say about it.
yeah, that's a big one. Go ahead.
Well, when so I did something similar. Now,
Mm-hmm.
obviously, my marriage has grown and evolved, but when we got married, and we had been together for a long time, and been our own people in our togetherness, or maybe I think what happened for me was that I was the one who was compromising, right, in the name of
Mm-hmm.
harmony, in the name of keeping things happy. And there's nothing wrong with compromise if both parties are doing it. But what I found is that over the course, and it took years for me to get to the place where I realized I keep swallowing little parts of myself in the name of harmony, but it's creating disharmony in here, right? So maybe it looks on the outside, the relationship looks like it's bobbing along. Like I think I'm doing this in order to keep us happy, But I'm doing a huge disservice to us because I'm becoming bitter and resentful and disconnected from myself. And like the way that I handled it, my coping mechanism was to sort of like just fold my arms in withdrawal and
Mhm.
say, whatever, I'm fine. Just get pissy. And there was a huge turning point when I had the conversation with myself that you just had, right? Which is, this isn't, I am not behaving like who he chose,
Mhm.
right? The choices I've made in the name of harmony served neither of us. And so it was like I had to, had to do two things, right? So you can change someone else's behavior, right? When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. So when I recognized exactly what you said, because I used to get so mad about little things because I had created expectations. And in the name of being a good wife, because I
Mhm.
thought that's what good wives did. Until I realized I don't want to do this forever. Why did I start doing this? I don't want to do this forever. And now I've trained this man to expect it of me. Um, and once I recognized, oh, I started this story, right? I did this. I can undo it, and change the way I look at things. Right, started to tell a new story. Um, an incredible shift happened, and our intimacy grew. Being able to have that conversation out loud with my husband and say, "I don't know why I did this, but I did." And he was saying, yeah, I don't expect that of you, or I don't like, and quite honestly said, yeah, it's awesome, it's nice, I'm not going to tell you not to. Like, I don't even remember what the things were that I did. Oh, I still do this actually, and this is a habit I'm actively working on shifting, right? Because I prepare the food and do the dishes. And I realize, oh, I don't want to do both of those things. I want to do one or the other. Anyway, once I was able to from a much more neutral place, not an angry, blaming, you expect this of me, like, but just a neutral place of like, oh, look at that. I was then able to shift my vibration, which enabled me to have a sane conversation instead of just a, um, well, you don't see me as anything more than a servant conversation, which I always knew wasn't true, right? And
Yeah.
it was actually a really hurtful thing to say. Um, Everything shifted. So yeah, I don't know if this is like offering hope to people or if it is just people nodding their heads and saying I've been there. But I do think it's a common thing that when whatever subconscious or just past, like whatever conditioning we bring into our relationship, especially our we're in this together relationships. I think if we're not aware, we fall into old patterns that we don't even necessarily neither party has actually agreed to. And that's what happened for me. It sounds like it happened for you in your first marriage. Honestly, the difference between me and you was probably age and children, right? So I was at a different place where I wasn't going to ditch this. I had like a come to Jesus moment with myself and said, okay, you're in this. What do you want? Which is, yeah, just interesting.
There was way more to my first marriage than just that I won't get into. So I don't know if it would have. So I guess I should be clear about that because it's not that we broke up because we were different or because I was not being myself. Because in the end, if you've read my book, you know what happens. I started finding myself again and doing intuitive art and getting to know me and what I really believed and thought, and then what was the relationship status like. And so um, I figured all that out and I got back to myself and I started writing more and blogging and I had a good job that I really loved and things had really turned around for a few years before we actually split up. The reason that we actually ended things had more to do with he wasn't faithful and there were drugs and like there's just stuff. So um, sometimes it's not going to work out, and that's okay too. If you're in a position where you really know, like deep down, it's not even an emotional thing anymore, you just know this just isn't right for me, that's okay. I think I stayed with him longer than I might have needed to, which again is okay. I didn't do anything wrong, but I felt tremendous guilt about giving up, you know, and I I felt like I signed up to love this person for the rest of my life, and I was totally willing to do that. But after years and years of having that mentality of like, all right, I'm in it, let's do it, um, it it just was getting worse, and so I had to realize, okay, I have all the information. I know myself now. I know what I want. I'm feeling stronger. What do I want to do? And so that's when I decided to leave. And it was the best thing that could have happened to me. I love that I had that relationship, and I like the whole thing feels kind of like this weird fairy tale, even though most of it wasn't very pleasant. And so I'm, no harm, no ill wishes, but yeah, sometimes it won't work out. But for the most part, I think we have a lot more control than we think we do. You know, if going to a more evolved place within ourselves, right? If we know of a different lifestyle that we want to try, if we want to travel more, if we want to do art on the weekends and not necessarily stay home every waking time that they're available, like there's way more leeway for you than a lot of people give themselves. The biggest thing that I've seen in my coaching career is that what you're saying, Carrie, when you get married, you think you sign a contract with someone that says, I will do everything possible for you that I can do. I will be with you every moment that I'm able to be with you, and so on. And it's often never talked about. Their expectation on your partner side is never given to you. Like they never say, don't do this, you can't do this. But we think that there are just certain limitations that come along with being a wife or a husband or a partner. And those are the things that you get to challenge within yourself. Wait, has my partner ever said that I can't do this? Has my partner ever blah, blah, blah? So if there's something you want to do, if you want to go out and meet new people, if you want to go and, work on a hobby, if you want to make a part of your house into a studio or an office, if you want to go travel by yourself, if you want to get an RV, like anything that you want to do, if you support within yourself and present it to your partner in a loving, open way, like, hey, I've been really wanting to try this, I bet you're going to find that they're very supportive. If not in that first conversation, leave them hints, right? Like, put some stuff around the house, let them ease into it, right? And I think that's especially if you phrase it as a can I do this, right? Maybe they'll say no at the first, who knows? But the more confidence you have about yourself and what you want to do, the easier it is for them to come along, right? So that's, I guess, my biggest thing I guess I want to get across here is you have more power over your life than you probably think, because we all have stories in our heads about limitations and where they come from, and they're not true.
So what came up for me when you were talking about your ex-husband is number one, you said you signed up to love this person for the rest of your life, but I think that you still do, right? I think that you will love him for the rest of your life, right? So
Yes, just
what you signed up
just
for,
with
you are doing.
worldly boundaries. Yes.
Yes. Um, and but that brings us to something important, right? Because it's it is that idea of boundaries. There's something else that was coming up that I wanted to mention. If anybody ever read Eat, Pray, Love, you could probably remember this better than me, but there's a way Elizabeth Gilbert describes soulmates. in that book. And she actually describes it through the voice of Richard from Texas. And he is describing soulmates to her, and he tells her in some, I'm not going to quote it exactly right, but that a soulmate doesn't have to be forever, right? A soulmate is when two souls meet at the moment they're supposed to, and they support each other in the way that they're supposed to. And then sometimes you go on your merry way, right? Sometimes each soul's journey has been served by that relationship, and then they're both growing in different directions, or not. But that, like, you meet, your souls meet and connect and align for as long as they're supposed to. I found that really helpful. People who are going through breakups often find that really helpful. Like, oh, he can, or she can have been my soulmate, and now it is okay for us to
Mm-hmm.
go in opposite directions. So I wanted to say that because it came up for me. But then when you're talking about our power in the relationships, I kind of want to bring that back to right now
Mm-hmm.
and the practical and absolutely that. So that happened to me. My example of that is um, I am very much, if my husband tells me like, hey, I want to go on a boys trip or I want to do this, like I'm always like, yeah, sure. Okay, when are you going to be gone? And sometimes, especially in the past, I would be irritated, like, how much is he going to spend on that? And but it really all came down to this story that I would tell myself, which was, must be nice. I'm the most awesome wife in the world that he can come to me and say, I want to take this trip. And I say, sure, yeah, have a good time. But if I ever came to him, he would say, no, forget it. You can't do that. That was my story. I lived that story for so long. It was completely untrue. But it was still a scary thing for me when I finally got to the place where I'm like, I want to go on a trip. I want to do something. And I did exactly what you were saying, Rachel, like little by little, letting myself get to the place where I'm not asking. like,
Mm-hmm.
um, and and then when it, like, there was a little bit of resistance from my husband initially to the idea of, more he was scared, like I'd never been gone for that long, could he manage the kids? Like it was not like, wife, you can't go. It was, am I going to be okay? um, but in the end, it was like so beautiful of me. It was all about what we came to in the beginning, right? It was my relationship with myself. It was me feeling good and strong and powerful. um, and it came to pass, and nothing bad happened, and it was great
Yay.
for all parties involved.
Mm-hmm.
um, yeah, but that's a super tangible example of what you're talking about. But I want to get back to, okay, right now in this moment where so many of us maybe are feeling restricted, restricted by the regulations where we live, restricted by all the things that are closed and canceled and shut down, or just like what's coming, the argument that's coming up in our household is, some of us are maybe a little bit more um, adherent to the idea of social distancing than others. um, and yeah, so there's, I don't know, like, how can we, um, what's a good angle on this conversation? Feel powerful. I don't know if powerful is the right word, but like feel feel fully expressed with all of these like perceived external restrictions. Does that make sense? Can you pull something out of there?
Yeah. Yeah. I think so. I feel very expressed lately, and there are a lot of restrictions in my area. And um, I'm not worried about getting this, but I am choosing to play along. Like, so I'm having one of these experiences where, like, I'm not buying into or playing into this global fear, though I do realize there is something real happening for a lot of people. And I could just say, oh, fuck it, I don't need to wear a mask. I can go wherever I want, right? But what's true for me is feeling like, oh, I'm going to be respectful and I'm going to do what I am being advised to do. And it's not taking anything away from me. It's not, de-expressing me. It's not limiting me in any way. Because if I'm in alignment with the situation, then whatever need I need to get fulfilled, there will be a way to do it. There will be a path of least resistance to do it. And I mean, it even comes down to the fact that I have a really cute mask. Like I have a little designer mask that I ordered from one of my favorite designers. So it's like, even that is self-expression for me. I have a real need to go and do things outside. Like that is just part of who I am. And so there was a lull in cases a couple weeks ago when my partner and I went to the Teton National Park for a few days, and that was brilliant and beautiful, and we got our fix. But I already need it again, and so I booked a week of camping the first week of September because that's what I need. And so having a story in your head that says, I can get everything that I need, even though all of this stuff is happening, will hook you up with that opportunity. But if you feel limited inside of yourself, if you feel restricted, that's what you're going to see, and that's what you're going to manifest. So let that go. Remember that you create everything that's going on out there. You are in charge of the opportunities that are presented to you. And if you can find a place within yourself to feel how you want to feel self-expressed, feel abundant, feel excited, that stuff is going to make itself known to you. And so you can say, oh yeah, I'm going to do that and that and that. So it's just about you feeling how you want to feel and then opening your eyes to see what's crossing your path. It sounds like magic once again, but it's that simple. It does take effort, though, to come back to this moment of presence, to be able to feel that way and think that way. So that's the whole effort that's involved here. It's in focusing on being present with yourself and how you're feeling and choosing how you want to feel.
I love it because every conversation we ever have really boils down to what you just said, right? This
Yeah.
idea of feel the way you want to feel.
Mm-hmm.
And so whether that is remembering what you appreciate about your partner, or like I didn't really talk about my dad, but my dad has been like a difficult relationship for me in adulthood. In childhood, I adored him. In adulthood, I think I recognized some things that I didn't love, right? Some things in myself that I realized, oh crap, those came from my dad. I definitely went through like a period of blame and anger, and then a period of like, okay, how do I negotiate this relationship? And now my dad is like having the early signs of dementia, right? So I'm recognizing like, okay, this relationship is going to change, and huge chunks of him maybe are going to disappear. So how do I want to look at him? How do I want to see him? What do I want to remember about him? And it has totally shifted that, and feel the way I want to feel, right? Like I could, as he goes into this journey of dementia, like I've been doing homework and research, and it's brought up more of a lot of the same other stuff, right? The anger and blame, and the reasons why he did this to himself and all of that stuff. But ultimately, right, do I want to feel that way, or do I want to feel closeness and connection and intimacy and caring and all of the things? And so it just leads us back to that same conversation, whether it's your partner or your children, right? I'm about to have two teenagers in the house. Right? So looking at their behavior, looking at who they are, and choosing to feel the way I want to feel about it. There's gifts in that. And ultimately, it does shift the relationship. You're right, Rachel. You and I do talk about this a lot, right? The strongest vibration wins. And so for me, it's about making my vibration so powerful, so strong, that feeling the way that I want to feel, so strong, that it wins the room.
Yeah.
And it is magic when it happens. It is absolute freaking magic when it happens.
Yeah. You know, we do talk about this a lot, this vibrational way of looking at things. And I also just want to mention that this is how we approach coaching in the Intuitive Art Academy. So I've been a coach for a long time, and I've put the framework that I use with people inside of our full certification program. And so we teach people how to align with this way of thinking and this way of being, and how to achieve it in the easiest way for them, like how to build that momentum so that it's easier, and what to do, the tools to focus on. And so we teach our certification students how to do that with other people. And we're padding it out this year and creating that in an even bigger way. So I'm not going to spoil it for you, but I just wanted to mention that if this sounds good to you, like if you're resonating with this way of being and this way of getting things done, and having more of what you want in your life, then maybe check out our certification program and learn how to do this for yourself and others. Because I was going to do a whole nother live stream on this, but it's pretty apparent by now that things really are different. I thought that this whole pandemic thing would be over by now, but it's just getting worse in some areas, and we don't know how long things are going to be shut down. We don't know how in-person business is going to fare over the next few years. And so if you're looking to make more money in a way that you can rely on, and it being online, then definitely check out our certification. Because no matter how you want to use intuitive art, whether you want to develop a coaching practice, just do intuitive art with people as its own thing, integrate it into something else that you already do and add more value and more clarity, we have you covered. It's a very comprehensive program, and we can help you get set up with making online income part-time at first, if that's what you need to do, but then go into however much you want. So you can learn more at intuitiveart.com/certification. Sorry. intuitiveart.com/certification. And that'll give you a tour of our program and kind of give you more information. So definitely consider that if you're looking ahead and you're like, I don't know what I want to do. I'm ready for a change, or I'm just ready for I'm ready to become that power center in my life, and to not be worried about where my money is going to come from. So, yeah, had to add that in.
Well, I want to say something about the full certification because I've been a coach for a really long time too. And this was game changing for me. I think the full certification is so worthwhile, even if you actually never intend on becoming a coach. And I want to say that because, we're talking a little bit about being the powerful energy in the room. And oh man, like, it is a master's degree in that. And it's just so freaking powerful. So, right, a big part of the reason why people who work with you, Rachel, get results that are seriously magical is because of this approach that you take, right?
Yes.
Because you do things so differently. And so that's what you go through in the full certification program. And it's so much bigger than just like a technique, right?
Mm-hmm.
It is it's holistic. It is transformative for the human in the course, and it's transformative for then the way you show up, right? In every interaction that you have, which means it's not just transformative for you, it's transformative for future clients and for all your relationships, right? It's transformative in the way you show up. And it's so freaking valuable. So I just wanted to toot your horn and say yes, yes to all of it.
Thanks. Well, I guess we can't leave you without giving you some intuitive art prompts. So I will also plug one more thing. If you want a bunch of relationship prompts, if you want to read about my relationship, you can go to intuitiveartbook.com. There's links there to buy it on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Powell's. So go check that out for sure. But also, we talked about a lot today, and wherever you are in your relationship, you can always ask, how can I have a better relationship with myself? First and foremost, how can I have a better relationship with myself? Will get you very, very far and will help all those other relationships, like we were saying. And then wherever you are personally, like if you have questions about your own relationship, just ask intuitive art. Because that is going to be your higher self's perspective on all of this, which is totally unbiased, totally loving, totally knows where you are, where you want to be. And so you can totally rely on intuitive art to get you some clarity. Do you have anything you want to add, Carrie?
No, just totally, Rachel.
Totally. That's the era I grew up in. Carrie was an actual Valley girl. But in Milford, Connecticut, on the other side of the country, we were absolutely Valley girls with her.
So actually, Rachel, I was not a Valley girl because I didn't live in the Valley. But yes, saying like and totally and rad. Those were
Mm-hmm.
those were the things that we said. So yeah, you should check out everything Rachel just said because it's like totally rad.
All right, friends. Well, let us know where you're at. Share your drawings with us in our Facebook group. We can't wait to see them. And if you have any more requests for live stream topics, give us your info. Let us know what you want us to talk about. And we love you, and we'll see you soon. Thanks, Carrie.